Before we start drawing your house in Revit, we want to set up wall types. I have a couple basic wall types set up here. So I have an exterior brick wall set up. If you look on the inside, you see it's a different color because there's different layers set up within this. And then I have two different interior walls that I'm going to give you. One is 4.5 inch interior wall, and the other one is for your wet wall. So anything that toilets and tubs and things like that, a butt that you have pipes inside of. Looking at this wall real quick, you're going to be setting up different layers in here when we get into Revit. So right now we're going to be looking at planning that. So we'll take a look over in PowerPoint here. So I'm going to give you both interior walls. You're going to end up with a 4.5 inch interior partition. So basic wall that's going to separate all your interior rooms. I'm also going to give you the 6.5 interior wet. The only difference in here is the structure. So all walls are going to have a core boundary. That's this green line that's here. Inside the core boundary is the structure. This really needs to be changed to finish as well. Anything outside the core boundary should not be structure. And then you have a 1/2 inch of gypsum wallboard, which is drywall on either side. So for your 6.5 inch interior wet wall, it's 5.5 inch stud, and then a 1/2 inch drywall on each side. Again, I'll give this to you in the template file I'll send you next week. You have to decide what you want to have on the outside of your house. Some people use all the same wall type. Some people like to change it up. So you have to decide what you want. So there's just a couple examples of brick and siding. You might want a natural stone versus a stone veneer. The difference is going to be your thickness. A natural stone is glued on sort of like a tile. It adds around 2.5 inches to the thickness of the wall. A stone veneer or a true natural stone, you're looking at 6 to 8 inches plus an airspace. So a much deeper wall if you're looking for a true stone. Sometimes people mix in stucco with brick or stucco with stone, so you decide what you want to do. You have to at least get one exterior wall set up, but if you think you're going to use multiples, take a little bit of time here and sketch those out. So first thing you're going to have to do is a little bit of research. So just go on to search Google Images, put in like stucco wall section or brick wall section detail, something along those lines, whatever you want to use. Kind of sort through those a little bit, find one that really calls out the layers nicely for you. If you can't figure out what certain things are, like looking at this brick one that I'm going to use, it tells me nicely that I have a 1/2 inch of gypsum wallboard. It tells me I have a 2x6. It tells me the thickness of my insulation, 1.5 inches. Gives me my airspace. The only thing it doesn't give me is the thickness of the brick. You can easily just Google that. But a brick is around 3 5/8 of an inch thick. I'm going to put that on there. So the idea here is we look at the structure of the wall. The structure of the wall is really just the 2x6 that's here. And these are finishes on the outside of that wall and insulation spaces. So you pick what you want to do, whether that's 1, 2, 3, whatever you want to do, and you're going to come up with a sketch. So I'm just taking this brick one here, and I just got a piece of plain paper and started to sketch this out. This is not to scale. All I'm doing here is I'm just putting a bunch of lines down, roughly the thickness, what I think it might look like. So I have my gypsum wallboard here. That's what you see towards this side. That I'm labeling that as a 1/2 inch gypsum wallboard. Then I have my 2x6 OC, which is on center. So when they're laid out in the wall, they're 16 inches on center. And that is actually 5.5 inches. So a 2x6 is actually 1.5 inches by 5.5. So when you set this up, the distance from this yellow line to this yellow line is going to be 5.5 inches for your exterior. And you should be using 2x6 for your exterior wall. That's going to give you more insulation value and a more rigid structure. Outside of that, we have our rigid insulation, so just some kind of like little hatch on there to show the difference there. And in this one, they called that out 1.5 inches. It could be 1 inch, depending on what type of product you find. Anytime you're using some kind of masonry product that is not directly applied to the wall, like a veneer stone, you need to have an airspace so that as moisture gets into the wall from rain and the atmosphere, it is going to condensate along the inside here. So you're going to have water dripping down through the inside, so it's important that this space is vented and vented out through the bottom. If you've ever mulched your house and you have brick and you see little holes at the bottom of that brick wall, that is for that moisture to drip out of there, so you don't want to cover those up. But where there's 1 inch of airspace in there, and then we have our 3 5/8 of an inch brick layer. Some other things that are labeled on here. Exterior and interior side. I mean, that you should be able to figure that out, but it's important when you set this up in Revit that you have them on the right side. So I want you to have that in on your sketch labeled. I want you to use a marker or highlighter, and I want you to highlight your core boundaries. So your core boundaries are where your structure is. So in this case, the structure is the 2x6. So I'm just highlighting these two lines, and when you get into Revit, they're going to be highlighted in green. Last thing I'm going to have you do is add up the total width of the wall. So looking at the 1/2 inch of gypsum, 5.5 inches of wood stud, 1.5 inch insulation, 1 inch of airspace, and then 3 5/8 here. Add those all up and get yourself a total wall thickness. Take a picture of this, and this is what I'm going to have you upload. Just a PowerPoint slide with your research on your image that you found and a picture of your sketch. Okay, and this might be one sketch. It might be two. If you have multiple wall types on your exterior of your home, plan on doing the work for both of those, and then just label that up top. So I'll put an assignment in there for you to do. When we start Revit in the coming week here, we're going to set this wall type up depending on what you select. So in Revit, there's that same brick wall I showed you earlier on. Looking towards the bottom, it's important we set these up. Interior goes towards the bottom, exterior on top. So I rotated the graphic over here to line up with that. But then we set those up as our, we have our brick layer, and we put thickness in there, air layer, rigid insulation. There's our core boundaries. Those are in green here. And then we have our finish gypsum wallboard, a 1/2 inch on the inside. Again, this is stuff we're going to be working on next week. This is what I want to see from you. You should be working on this Thursday and Friday this coming week, and then get that uploaded by Monday the following week. If you get it in earlier, great. I can get you some feedback on that. If you're having trouble finding graphics, please email me, or we can do a Google Meet if we need to make that happen. But real simply, just a sketch with some labels on it, not to scale, just the best proportion you can. Total dimensions for each layer, and then a picture of what you're kind of going off of. Again, it might be one of these, it might be multiple, depending on how complex your home's going to be. So just upload that PowerPoint slide or multiple slides to Schoology in the assignment when you're finished. Thanks for watching. Shoot me an email if you're having trouble.